We need to talk about malls. The retail apocalypse, ghost malls, Darth Mall, Dead Malls, Dead Mall 5, all of it. After 55 years, my local mall is closing, so I thought it would be a great time to dive way too deep into malls. And let me tell you, there's something strange going on here with malls, but fear not, I'm here to spill the beans. I'll be covering the rise, the fall, the potential rise again, and this insane subculture of dead mall and liminal space enthusiasts that is taking over the internet. If you haven't been paying attention, now is the time, because trust me when I say this affects all of us. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a psychologist or an archaeologist, but I did work at a mall for about 4 years, so I basically have a bachelor's degree in mallology. Mallology, you know, the study of malls. And during my time working at a mall and working in retail, I saw some pretty crazy stuff that has actually given me a really unique perspective on this whole thing. I witnessed store closings, bankruptcies, flooding, crime, Black Friday shenanigans, flooding, mall walkers, fashion shows. Oh, and did I mention the flooding? Yeah, let's just say working at a small town mall came with some pretty interesting experiences, and I have somewhat of a leg to stand on when talking about malls, dead malls, and the retail apocalypse. So today I want you to follow me down this rabbit hole of malls and retail, but I must warn you, what you're about to see may shock you. In the late 20th century, malls soared to prominence across the United States and in many parts of the world. The idea was simple: offer a centralized shopping experience for everyone. Want to check out the newest tech? Head to your local mall. Need to buy a gift? Your mall has you covered. Craving a delicious and savory cinnamon pretzel? Guess what, little Jimmy? The mall is the place for you. By the 1990s, America boasted over 1,500 large-scale shopping malls, and let me tell you, the mall explosion was real. Santa Claus, kiosk salespeople, Abercrombie and Fitch, American Eagle, Spencer's, Hot Topic, and so much more. Malls were not just a place to shop. They hosted yoga classes, fashion shows, and even weddings. Yes, people got married in malls. These were wild times, and like always, life imitates art. Shopping centers were featured across all forms of media, in music videos, TV shows, and movies. Malls became intertwined with our culture faster than you could spell the word mall. M-A-L. And just like the mall's swiftness to rise, there was an equally swift force that led to its fall: the internet. In the early 2000s, websites like Amazon and eBay paved the way for worldwide e-commerce. Soon you could access the latest tech, gifts, and cinnamon pretzels all from the comfort of your living room. And the future of traditional retail centers became uncertain. But the internet is just a tiny piece of this story. Things began to change significantly when the Great Recession occurred in 2008. Various sectors were affected by this economic downturn: banks, the stock market, real estate, and most notably malls. Across America, malls began to shut their doors for good as the average purchasing power of the average consumer significantly declined. With less money to spend on things like luxury goods, people shopped less. It's as simple as that. And the era of widespread retail growth was over, and a new era of economic downturn began. Over the next decade, a wave of brick and mortar giants would close their doors for good or migrate most of their operations online, leaving many major malls without any large retailers. This significant shift and decline in brick and mortar retailers was acknowledged by many Redditors, major news networks, and even politicians, labeling it the retail apocalypse. Statistically speaking, you or someone you know was affected by the retail apocalypse. Believe it or not, the most common job in America is a retail salesperson. So when I said this affects all of us, I meant it. I actually had first-hand experience with this. From 2013 to 2017, I worked for a clothing retailer called Rue 21. Starting as a sales associate, I gradually progressed into management roles and had the opportunity to collaborate with corporate, occasionally traveling to the company headquarters for special events. Everything was going well. I generally believed this would be my long-term career. I truly enjoyed my time there and had a privilege of working with some incredible people. But things quickly changed. I witnessed the initial implementation of a half-baked online ordering system that I would describe as chaotic. Orders were frequently lost, customers received incorrect items, and then corporate turned my store, one of the highest performing stores into a clearance outlet. Soon after, I opened my store in the morning to an email from our CEO about a store-wide conference call. Hopped on, and the CEO announced that they had filed for bankruptcy, indicating that our store would be closing in the coming weeks. I was devastated. Although I had only been there for about 4 years, some of my colleagues were with Route 21 for over 10 years. In 2017, Route 21, which had 1,000 stores, closed 400, resulting in thousands of job losses. While the company initially survived, it was short-lived, as they just announced their complete shutdown last month. I, like so many others, witnessed firsthand just how impactful a closing of a business, retailer, or mall could be, which is why I believe it's important to note when we're discussing malls, we're discussing people too. People depend on malls for income, a place to hang out with their friends, or maybe just a place to escape. Humans are deeply connected to places they frequent, like malls, and this relationship with retail spaces that humans have is really fascinating to me, and I want to learn more about it. Insert the mecca of small-town shopping malls, the Shenango Valley Mall. This 55-year-old mall is nicknamed the Shenango Valley Hall due to its small size and uninspiring design. Interestingly, it was featured in my Chipotle documentary a few months ago where I said this: before this place inevitably closes down. And sure enough, soon after my video, they announced they would be closing the space and demoing the building. Now, was it a coincidence that I suggested it was going to close and soon after it did? Maybe. Or maybe I can predict the future. We will never know. Anyways, the Shenango Valley Mall is scheduled to close this summer, but before its end, the local city announced they would be having an end of an era, beginning of the future day at the mall. So naturally, I had to go. And the place was packed. I'm not kidding. It was the busiest I've ever seen it in my life. Thousands of people came out to reminisce on the mall's glory days. They even had a wall where people could write their memories on it. It was quite magical, so I set up my camera and asked people their thoughts on the mall's closing and malls in general. What could you tell me about this mall? Do you have any distinct memories?
Yes, I have a lot. This mall was like my childhood.
I mean, our whole childhood is in this mall.
Weekends, we would hang out with our friends and, go from place to place.
When I was a kid, this actually was a kind of a nice place to be.
I've been coming to this mall since I was a little kid when my school was across the street, sneaking off to go to the arcade. I was in a fashion show here once. Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
I was married here by a robot when I was 16.
Coming to work one day in the middle of a snowstorm and losing my muffler as I went over the over the curb, and still made it to work though.
I know I used to bring the kids over here all the time when they were small, or it was an easy place to shop and get some things for them.
In the parking lot, my dad taught me how to drive there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's right.
My first love and I were here after school sitting on the fountain, and a robot from Radio Shack started playing music and come up and kind of married us right in front of everybody.
Coming up eating pizza up here. There's a great pizza shop that was up here.
This is a staple of this town.
I just think it's very sad.
Malls in general aren't doing very well right now.
People just want the convenience of online, and I get it. I buy online.
The only times you see malls busy anymore is for events like this.
Malls are just dying everywhere, so, our small town didn't really have a chance.
It was really interesting to see how much impact one mall could have on so many people. What is it that makes malls so special? Is it the stores? Is it the memories? Maybe it's the friends we made along the way. I don't know. The Shenango Valley Mall is one example of an unlikely retail space that people gravitated towards, but this is only one aspect of mallology. Yeah, I'm coining that term. But what about the internet? Why are people fascinated with malls they've never been to, specifically dead malls? Subreddits, YouTube channels, and even entire websites are dedicated to dying malls. Why? All right, let's do a little social experiment. How does this picture make you feel? Okay. Valid. What about this picture? Interesting. Okay. What about this picture? Oh, sorry, that's not there. What about this picture? There we go. Yeah. Do these pictures make you feel comfortable, uncomfortable, happy, sad? There's no right answer. Well, these are examples of liminal spaces. You can find liminal spaces in airports, parking lots, or malls. Liminal spaces are those mysterious in-between spaces where you're not quite here or there. They can leave you feeling a bit lost or uncertain because you're not fully in one place or another. While the internet has long been fascinated with liminal spaces, their popularity has surged in recent years. Likely the most notable liminal space is the back rooms. The back rooms are a fictional concept that originated on a 4chan message board back in 2019. This single message board post has inspired music, video games, and artists across the world. The backrooms blew up in 2020, around the same time the whole world started hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer. And let's be honest, those years were a bit transformative for everyone. I know I really got into chess and composting, but for some people, they got into liminal spaces. And now while we exist in the present, these activities or places that we turn to still seem to provide a sanctuary from the chaos and uncertainties of the harsh real world. But why malls? Why is it that malls, a place designed to be a bustling hub of consumerism, are now the poster child of liminal spaces? Well, I did more homework and I reached out to an expert. This is Arya Bookbinder, the founder of Liminal Assembly. This Toronto-based collective orchestrates immersive tours of real-life liminal spaces, including dedicated expeditions through the corridors of dead malls. If anyone can claim they're an expert on dead malls, it's this guy.
Hello everyone. Arya Bookbinder here from Liminal Assembly. I'm taking a ride on the escalator in my childhood mall. The obsession with liminal spaces and hyper nostalgia is really what it is it's an escape. You're escaping your present reality, but you're not doing that by experiencing a fictitious alternative reality, but you're actually doing that by being reminded or reminding yourself of the way you actually used to be. There's a lot of people who reminisce the past and they say that they wish they could go back if only things were the way they used to be. The irony is, just go. It's still here. It won't be the same, but you can go. It makes you feel like you're actually returning to a past life in a way. It reconnects you with the actual backdrop of your core memories. I think it sparks an emotion that we don't have a name for. One of the tours I run is called the Dead Malls Tour, where I bring people to a series of 4 dying malls around the outskirts of the city. People describe emotions ranging from this is depressing to this is scary to I finally feel like I've returned to my long lost home. It can feel like we actually literally are reliving our childhoods, and that is also a very confusing, exciting, comforting, and depressing thing at the same time. And I think that's as far as I've gotten in understanding what is so special about liminal spaces, and particularly malls. So I hope that's interesting. Thank you.
After hearing what Arya had to say about the dead mall phenomenon, I think I'm starting to understand this all a bit more. While liminal spaces and dead malls can mean different things to different people, it seems like they're also popular and connected because of the human element. As a sports fan, I can't help but compare dead malls to empty stadiums. Stadiums bring people together for an activity or an event. When a stadium is empty, it's almost like a religious experience. And that feeling is how many people feel at an empty mall. It's weird. It's uncomforting yet comforting. It makes no sense. You're not supposed to be here. And that feeling, let's be honest, is attractive to many people. So it's not surprising things like the back rooms, dead malls, and liminal spaces are so popular now. It's rare a picture, video, or in-person tour can evoke so much emotion. And I think that's our answer. But where does that leave the future of malls? Are all malls soon to be dead malls, liminal spaces, and relics of the past? Well, contrary to common belief, the idea that all malls are destined for extinction is far from accurate. While the traditional concept of malls may be evolving, these structures themselves are finding new purposes, adapting to changing needs, and finding an unlikely new audience. According to recent studies, Gen Z of all generations prefer in-person as much as online shopping, if not more. There's a lot of data showing that Gen Z craves social interactions, and that's where places like malls have come into play. Reports also theorize because the generation is used to having things immediately available to them, like downloads, music, and videos, there is a desire to get physical products immediately versus waiting a few days. But that's just one aspect of our current landscape. Some malls have transitioned into apartment complexes, office buildings, or educational facilities. A fascinating case I discovered during my research for this video took place in Burlington, Vermont. There, a local high school repurposed a former mall into its campus. I mean, how cool is that? And while it's true that many traditional malls have faced complete closures over the last 15 years due to the recession, the explosion of e-commerce, and the retail apocalypse, there are a number who have survived, dare I say thrived. Reports suggest top-tier malls, known as Class A malls, are actually growing. In 2022, physical retail saw more store openings than closures for the first time since 2016, and retail sales at malls grew more than 11%. How? Well, successful malls have diversified their tenant mix to include experiential retailers, entertainment venues, and dining options, plus are transforming themselves into exclusive travel destinations. The strongest have survived and are making the best of it. Another mall 35 minutes away from my local mall called the Eastwood Mall has a hotel connected to it, a minor league baseball stadium, an arcade, an aquarium, and numerous other attractions that make it a destination for travelers from all over. When I compare this to that, it's no wonder some malls are surviving and thriving. But then the question is, who is to blame for the malls that failed? Is it the internet? Is it Amazon, Walmart? Is it because people have less money to spend on luxury goods? Well, there's no doubt in my mind those things have affected malls significantly, especially in areas with massive economic changes. And there's so much blame to go around, it's not fair to just pin something on one thing when each mall has definitely faced its own individual challenges. But I feel like there's something everyone is afraid to say, and I'm going to say it. I blame this on ownership. Now, I can't speak for every small town mall or retailer that failed, but I've noticed a bit of a trend here. At my mall, the owners did not want to invest in the space. Despite public outcry from residents, customers, and the city, there were countless issues with the building. Many of the spaces were not up to code, so residents did not want to move in. There were rarely any cool events planned, and guess what? It became a dead mall.
Malls can survive. It just depends on who the owners are.
I kind of think that it's a shame that they didn't work better at trying to bring in business all along instead of waiting for a last hurrah.
Not taking care of the mall, just let it go, raise the rent up so people couldn't afford it, and they all left. The other malls survived, so I mean, this one could too if they just had the right person to.
I do think ownership could have done a better job. They could have worked harder at bringing in vendors. Over in Niles, the mall did not die, so it's just use that phrase that no malls are making it. That's not true.
There are successful strip malls within a short driving distance right next to this dead mall, so you can't blame it on the area. Successful retailers can thrive with proper management and leadership, and this extends past malls into almost all retailers. When I worked for Route 21, I experienced similar things. Upper level leadership didn't care for their employees, failed to innovate when other retailers were, lost touch with their customer base, and guess what? The business failed. See a connection here? There are plenty of successful clothing retailers that are thriving right now. Yes, regardless of how good leadership is, some things just fail. We couldn't have predicted 2008 or the whole toilet paper hoarding thing, but I hate this notion that so many large retailers just write off their failures because of the retail apocalypse. No, your leadership failed. If you are a CEO of a company making gazillions of dollars, overexpand, don't understand your target demographic or average consumer, you are going to fail. For malls and retailers to survive, they need good leadership. They need to be flexible yet lean, and most importantly, understand people. At the heart of all of this is the human element. There is no doubt a massive place in people's hearts for retail, malls, and what they represent. People like buying shit. That's the world we live in. And after speaking with so many others, that's extremely clear to me. Regardless of who you are, chances are you have at least one good memory in a mall or a retailer. Humans like humans. We like doing things together. We become attached to places and even buildings that we spend time with each other in. And if those places cease to exist or become empty, it's no surprise it becomes something that is so passionately talked about online, studied, and part of our cultural ecosystem. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on malls. As always, thank you so much for watching. Very much appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something today. Tell me your thoughts about malls. I'd love to hear them. Thank you guys, and I will see you all next time. Why do you think the mall is, what do you think of the mall closing?
Do you want to try? It just goes to show that like the self-awareness in this community is depleting. Are you familiar with the Food, Fun, and Family brand of Dave & Buster's? You get a Dave & Buster's down here, you get another Dave & Buster's down there, and then some benches for people to sit in between. And I think you've got yourself a community right there.